In this lesson, we will begin looking at parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines, as you see pictured over here where I just highlighted, parallel lines are lines that have the same tilt. And if they have the same tilt and they go the same direction, they never, ever, ever cross. And so parallel lines have slopes that are the same. Their slopes will be equal to each other. So parallel lines have slopes that are the same. Perpendicular lines, like in this picture over here, the blue and the red line, perpendicular lines meet at a 90-degree angle somewhere along the line there. So one has positive slope and one has negative slope, you can see. This one would have a positive slope because it goes up to the right. This one would have a negative slope. But perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. Opposite reciprocals. So reciprocal means to flip the top and the bottom, and opposite means it's the opposite sign. So if one's positive, the other has to be negative. So for instance, the opposite reciprocal to 2/3 would go to negative, so that it's the opposite sign, 3/2. The opposite reciprocal to -2, and by the way, this is really -2/1, would go to positive. If it's negative, it goes to positive 1/2. So you have to switch the sign and flip the top and the bottom around. Okay. This one says write the equation of the lines that pass through the given point and are parallel to and perpendicular to the given line. Okay. So here's the line I gave you, and I will show you this on the next slide. I gave you this line, and I want you to take that line and find a line that goes through the point 1,3 that's both perpendicular to this line and parallel to this line. So I'll show you what we're doing here so that you can picture this. The blue line is the line y equals 4x plus 5. Then I gave you the point 1,5. Ooh, and I wanted it to be 1,3. Sorry. So let's plot the point 1,3. 1,3 would be right here. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to go find the equation of the line that goes through that green dot that's parallel to the blue line. So that would be like this right here. So I want you to find the equation for that line and the line that goes through the green dot, but it is perpendicular to the original line. And that would look something like this. Okay? So in the first case, in part A, I want you to find the equation for that line. In part B, I want you to find the equation for that line. That's what you're going to be doing. Okay? The y equals 4x plus 5 is this line right here is y equals 4x plus 5. The only reason I give you that line is because you need to know the slope of that line. Okay? So it's in y equals mx plus b, and the slope of that line is 4 right now. Okay? So then what you need to do is you need to think about, okay, well, the slope of the line that's parallel to it, the slope of this line, has to be the same as the slope of the original line. That's the only way you get parallel lines. So the slope of that line also better be 4. The slope of this line should be the opposite reciprocal to the original line. So the opposite reciprocal to 4 would be -1/4. Okay? So we'll use that over here, and we'll do this. Again, this is in y equals mx plus b. The slope of this line right here has a slope of 4. Okay? Again, parallel lines have the same slope, so that will also be m equals 4. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So here I would use the opposite reciprocal to 4, which is -1/4. Okay? That is the absolute only reason you use the line I gave you, is to figure out the slope of it. So I'm going to cross this off. It means nothing anymore. I will use no other parts to it. Now what I will use to find the slope of the line parallel to it, I will use this m and this point. And I am going to plug it into this formula right here that we have seen over and over and over again. And this will be your x1, this will be your y1, and of course we know your m. Okay, so I have y minus 3 equals 4 times x minus x1, which is 1. And then I'm just going to simplify that. And typically we give our answers in y equals mx plus b form, but of course we know we can get them in any form. But we have y minus 3 equals, I will distribute the 4 through, and when I distribute the 4 through, I will have 4x minus 4, add 3, and I have y equals 4x minus 1. So the slope of that line that's parallel to the original one would look like that. And then perpendicular, I will do the same thing. I will still plug it into this formula right here. The only difference is, instead of using an m or a slope of 4, I will use an m or a slope of negative 1/4. Okay? This up here is still my x1 and my y1. So I still have y minus 3 equals negative 1/4 times x minus 1. So y minus 3 equals negative 1/4 times x is negative 1/4 x. Negative 1/4 times negative 1 is positive 1/4. And then I will add 3 to both sides. And I know we're dealing with fractions here, so don't panic. If I add 1/4 plus 3, I'll kind of do this off to the side over here. 1/4 plus 3. This is really 3 over 1. To get common denominators, I will make this be 12 over 4. So 12/4 plus 1/4 would give me 13/4. Okay? So plus 13/4. And I'm good. All right, here's another one. This time my lines are not in y equals mx plus b form, so I need to get them into y equals mx plus b form first. And I'll just show you. This blue line here is the equation 3x plus 12y equals 6. But I need to get it into y equals mx plus b form. So I am going to, first of all, subtract 3x. And then I have 12y equals negative 3x minus 6. Sorry. And then I would divide by 12 all the way across. And I'll get y equals negative 3 over 12 reduces to negative 1/4. Negative 6 over 12 reduces to negative 1/2. So this is the original line, okay? The absolute only reason you use that original line is to find the slope, okay? So here we go. If I were to graph that, that's this blue line right here. Y equals negative 1/4 x minus 12. And you're going to use the point negative 1, negative 7. You're going to find a line that is parallel to the blue line. So in other words, it never crosses the blue line. That would be this right here. We know that lines that are parallel have the same slope. So on this one right here, I know that my slope is negative 1/4. The one that is parallel to it will also have a slope, of negative 1/4. And then the one that's perpendicular to it that goes through that green dot like this has a slope that is opposite reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal to negative 1/4 is positive 4. Okay? So, going back here, again, the absolute only reason I use this is to get the slope out of it. I do not use the y-intercept, ever. I only need it to get the slope. Parallel lines will have the same slope, so I know it will also be negative 1/4. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocal, so the opposite reciprocal to negative 1/4 is positive 4. Here is your x1 and your y1, okay? And you're going to plug that into the formulas. So I will go y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus, my y1 was negative 7. In this case, my slope is negative 1/4 times x minus negative 1. Okay. So we know this becomes y plus 7 equals negative 1/4 x. This becomes positive right there, just so you know. So negative 1/4 times positive 1 would be negative 1/4. And then I will subtract 7. And I'll have y equals negative 1/4 x. Now I have to take negative 1/4 minus 7. So I'll do this sort of off to the side here. Negative 1/4 minus 7. Right now this is 7 over 1. So if I get common denominators, I would multiply that right side by 4, so it becomes 28/4. So negative 1/4 minus 28/4 would be negative 29/4. Okay, so negative 1/4 minus 7 is negative 29/4. And that's what this would look like, the one that is parallel to it. Okay. Perpendicular to it will be a little easier because we're not dealing with fractions. But again, we will still do y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Our y1 is still our negative 7. From up here, I'm still using the same point. Our m is now 4. And our x1 is up there from that same point too, negative 1. So I have y plus 7 equals 4 times x plus 1, because I just went boom boom like that. Most of you can probably skip that step. I'll distribute the 4 through. And when I distribute the 4 through, I have 4x plus 4. And then, of course, subtract the 7. So I have y equals 4x minus 3. And that is it for this lesson.